General Zahirul Islam, who is the rising star or who is the main star of this program, who was very generous to organize this program for us to celebrate the Sri Lanka Pakistan friendship, through which we have come out a lot of things, a lot of relationships between the two countries. And Mr. former High Commissioner to Sri Lanka, Mr. General Shakil Hussain, who came out with a wonderful statement, not only with his experience, but with a thorough analysis that needs to put the country's relationships at a higher level. I am thankful to you for a well-analyzed speech made by you, sir. Last not the least, my colleague, Mrs. Saroja Sirisena, spokesperson of the Foreign Ministry of Sri Lanka and also the Director General of Economic Affairs. I am really honored to be amongst you today as the High Commissioner for Sri Lanka and Pakistan to commemorate the 71st Independence Day of Sri Lanka. And Honorable Minister Mahbub Sultan was our chief guest in that function also. He made a historical statement in his speech, which has been published in all the newspapers today. I'm thankful to you, sir, for a wonderful statement that you have made with regard in order to develop our relationships at a higher level in the future. And before I proceed to speak, because I'm speaking, I have been called upon to speak after two wonderful speakers who have presented a very well analyzed and beautiful speeches. So I don't need to go much into that. And so I would like to make use of this opportunity as to express my gratitude to certain people from the Center for Global Strategic Studies. Firstly, to the Chairman General Zahirul Islam and Mr. Colonel Khalid, who has been a wonderful person, who had been right throughout discussing and associating with us to organize this function. And his two assistants, Hamina and the other two sisters who are here, pardon me for not being able to remember your name. You have been continuously working for this program to become a successful event. Thank you very much. Before I proceed to make a few remarks with regard to the relationship between Sri Lanka and Pakistan. See, Pakistan and Sri Lanka have maintained close, cordial and mutually supportive relations since 1948. We obtained our independence on February 4th of February 1948, whereas Pakistan gained its independence from British on the 14th of August 1947. Within a period of 6 months, soon after Sri Lanka gained independence, established its diplomatic relationship with Pakistan. So when we celebrate our independence, we also celebrate the diplomatic relationship with Pakistan for the last 7 decades. And Sri Lanka was one of the few countries which established its diplomatic relationship with Pakistan soon after gaining independence. Sri Lanka and Pakistan have been very close allies for more than 7 decades. Ever since both nations won independence from the British, there has existed a strong mutual understanding and sense of cooperation between the two countries. Quaid-e-Azam Muhammad al-Jinnah, the great founder of the Islamic Republic of Pakistan, in his message on attainment of dominion status by Sri Lanka, then known as Ceylon, stated this: Pakistan has the warmest goodwill towards Ceylon, and I am sanguine that the good feeling which exists between our two people will be further strengthened as the years roll by, and our common interest and mutual and reciprocal handling of them will bring us into still close relationship. What a great statement made by a great man that still exists. The relationship exists today as he expected. The relationship between the two countries was solidly founded by several events over a period of time. D.S. Nayaka, the first Prime Minister of Sri Lanka, was one of the few heads of state who visited Pakistan in 1948, immediately after the attainment of independence by Sri Lanka. And he met Quaid-e-Azam, and since then, high-level interactions and mutually supportive relationships continued with each other in different sectors, including trade, defense, health, education, and other social sectors. The friendship was sealed in 1971 when the Prime Minister of Sri Lanka, Srimao Bandaranaike, allowed Pakistan aircraft flight and refueling permission in the midst of Indo-Pakistan war. That was a major risk, as it could have been undermined Sri Lanka's relationship with India at a vital time, because India is very close to Sri Lanka geopolitically. In the context of geopolitical dynamics in the region at that time, Sri Lanka was taking a significant risk when she opened her gates to Pakistan, who was the main adversary of India in the said war. Nevertheless, Mrs. Bandaranaike stood firm and took a bold decision to allow Pakistan Air Force planes to touch down at the Katunayake International Airport. Because of Mrs. Bandaranaike's unprecedented gesture, Sri Lanka and Pakistan have stood by each other through thick and thin. Since then, Pakistan has been generous and spontaneous in her support to Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka's assistance at that juncture was a momentous symbolic gesture. It displayed Sri Lanka's sincere goodwill towards Pakistan. The courage and diplomatic prowess with which Sri Lanka extended her support to Pakistan set the foundation for a lasting friendship between both the countries. The history of the defense partnership between Sri Lanka and Pakistan goes back to 1971. During the insurrections carried out by the Marxist-Lenin organization Janata Vimukti Peramuna, as it was known in Sri Lanka, Pakistan heeded Sri Lanka's appeal for military assistance, and that was readily provided by Pakistan. In principle, Sri Lanka, having been at the forefront of the non-aligned movement, cannot enter into defense alliances with Pakistan or any other country. An interesting aspect of defense partnership between Sri Lanka and Pakistan is that it is solely driven by mutual trust and friendship. Therefore, the military relationship that exists between Sri Lanka and Pakistan carry a unique value to the bilateral relationship between the two countries. The bilateral defense relations reached their peak during the LTT conflict in Sri Lanka by openly helping Sri Lanka with weapons and training in Pakistan. Pakistan offered invaluable assistance throughout the war. This support was crucial. Some analysts have reported that Pakistan played a vital role in defeating LTT in Sri Lanka. Thanks to you for your kind assistance. In the midst of close defense partnership between Sri Lanka and Pakistan, the LTT attempted to assassinate the Pakistan High Commissioner to Sri Lanka, Colonel Bashir Wali Muhammad. The High Commissioner narrowly escaped the attack. The attack was a clear sign of the scale of the support Pakistan offered to Sri Lanka to fight the LTTE. Pakistan still provides military training to Sri Lanka's armed personnel at its premier defense colleges. The sharing of defense capabilities can be seen as an epitome of cooperation between two states in an anarchic regional system. There is no formal agreement between Sri Lanka and Pakistan which dictates the terms and conditions of military training arrangements. The military training offered by Pakistan to Sri Lanka has always been the mutual friendship and understanding between the defense establishments of both countries. Pakistan was generous in her support to Sri Lanka to combat terrorism. President Ziaul Haq, during his visit to Sri Lanka, has guaranteed to provide all required military hardware to combat the terrorists. General Cyril Ranatunga, who was the army chief at that time, in his biography, he writes about the meeting that he had with General Ziaul Haq during his visit to Sri Lanka. He states this, I quote, "I was inquisitive to know the time gap between such a request and delivery." He clasped, that is General Ziaul Haq, President Ziaul Haq clasped my hand and gave me his personal telephone numbers and asked me to ring him any time of the day. He assured me that delay will be only the time to load and the flight time from Pakistan to Sri Lanka. What a great gesture. Ladies and gentlemen, I do not wish to take much time, but I just would like to touch upon certain activities between the two countries with regard to trading and commerce. Trade represents a key aspect of an enduring relationship between Sri Lanka and Pakistan. Pakistan is supposed to be, or said to be, Sri Lanka's second biggest trading partner in South Asia. 3 years after establishing formal relationship with Pakistan, the two countries signed a trade agreement to the last from July 1951 to December 1952. Thereafter, several trade agreements were signed. General Shakil Hussain clearly set out those agreements, including the Joint Economic Commission. Consequently, a free trade agreement between the two Asian countries was signed on June 12, 2005. However, the economic relationship between the two countries have not shown great progress as was envisioned through the bilateral agreement. Sri Lanka once used to be the main source of tea in Pakistan. Pakistan is a top tea consuming nation. However, the import of tea from Sri Lanka gradually declined because Pakistanis predominantly consumed CTC variety of tea, which was no longer encouraged by the Sri Lanka Tea Board for the purpose of export. Sri Lanka has a rich legacy of quality tea production. The loss of market share for tea in Pakistan has massively declined due to several reasons. However, Sri Lanka High Commission in Pakistan has decided to promote Sri Lankan quality tea in Pakistan this year by declaring year 2019 as Ceylon Tea Promotion Year. The High Commission is of opinion that there is a great potential for Sri Lankan tea in Pakistan. There are several ways in which Sri Lanka can regain the Pakistani market for tea. For instance, by marketing variety of Sri Lankan tea that would be suitable to the Pakistani taste, such as the low-grown tea, low country teas, which are grown at an elevation of below 2,000 feet. Sri Lankan High Commission hopes to engage proper promotion campaign to ensure that the Pakistani citizens are aware of the different types of Sri Lankan tea and its methods of brewing, etc., to enjoy a good cup of tea. Creating awareness via a thoughtful marketing campaign will go a long way in promoting the Ceylon tea brand. Thus, it is hoped Sri Lanka tea will make an impact among the Pakistani citizens in future. As the situation in Pakistan is gradually improving, Sri Lankan hospitality has great potential in investing in the country. The Pakistan government has recently liberalized visa regime and has hoped its magnanimous religious, cultural and scenic beauty for pilgrims and tourists from all over the world. The potential is great in Taxila, which was once the capital of Gandhara region, where a significant number of Buddhist heritage sites such as Dharmarajika Stupa and the Taxila University are located. As Pakistan and Sri Lanka are home to a wide array of tourist attraction from beaches to mountain, desert to snowfall and historic sites, it can benefit greatly by partnering with Sri Lankan companies. Further, as Sri Lanka is gaining popularity with Pakistanis as a favored destination, the promotion of tourism could be two-way by encouraging visits by citizens from each country to the other. To achieve greater heights in the hospitality industry, the civil aviation links between the two countries need to be enhanced. Sri Lanka's national carrier, Sri Lankan Airlines, is currently flying 5 times a week to Karachi and thrice weekly to Lahore. And I must tell you that when Pakistan was faced with severe issues from various airlines, when they stopped flying to Pakistan, Sri Lankan Airlines was one of the airlines which had an unbroken run of connectivity with Pakistan right throughout. At the moment, there is no connecting flights to reach the capital city of Islamabad and other major cities in Pakistan. Initiating flights, especially between Islamabad and Colombo, is something that needs to be commenced immediately, and the High Commission is strenuously working in that aspect. This would further serve the tourist purposes, as pilgrims traveling to Taxila could travel through Islamabad. Increasing frequency of flights, the two countries were among the topics discussed during the visit of President Maithripala Sirisena to Pakistan, as it would be a motivation to increase the trade and economic relations between the two countries. However, economic cooperation between the two countries have been inadequate despite the close relations between the two countries. In conclusion, I wish to emphasize that there is an urgent need to revisit the contents of the free trade agreement with a view to identify new areas, new avenues of business between the two countries. Sri Lankan businessmen and entrepreneurs are not sufficiently aware of potential business opportunities in Pakistan, such as power and energy sector, gem and jewelry industry, and the hospitality and tourism industry, to name a few. I wish to emphasize the scope of the FTA, free trade agreement, should be liberalized and expanded from goods to services and investment. Given the goodwill prevailing between the two countries, there is much potential for future growth, and I would be seeking the assistance of the Honourable Minister who is with us, who is also in charge of food security and research, to assist us in revisiting the free trade agreement that has been signed about 10-14 years ago, and we have to go into the free trade agreement and see how best we could reformulate our positions to strengthen our bilateral relationship. Sri Lanka faced relentless diplomatic pressure from the political arm of the defeat LTT, neo-LTT elements in various countries such as in Europe and North America have been attempting to undermine the decisive military which Sri Lankan forces achieved against LTT in 2009. In post-war Sri Lanka was facing hostility from LTT sympathizers. Such elements, having utilized the provisions of international law and international organizations, attempted to indict Sri Lanka for war crimes and violations of human rights. At this juncture, Sri Lanka has to consolidate alliances with friendly nations in order to counter the attack against her sovereignty. This is a very important event which Sri Lanka will never forget. At the 25th session of the UNHRC, United Nations Human Rights Council, in March 2014, Pakistan voted against the resolution which called for an international inquiry into the alleged war crimes that supposedly took place in the last days of the war in 2009. Pakistan not only voted against the resolution, but also stood up for Sri Lanka by making a strong statement against the motives of the resolution. Pakistan permanent representative in the United Nations in Geneva, Ambassador Zamir Akram, it is nice of him to be present with us today. And I wish to thank you profusely, sir, on behalf of our country, for your wonderful performance in defeating the resolutions in the UNHRC. At the United Nations in Geneva, Ambassador Zamir Akram, under the able guidance of Mr. Jalil Abbasi Jilani, the Foreign Secretary of Pakistan, stated that an international investigation by the Office of the High Commissioner of Human Rights was a clear violation of the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Sri Lanka. He clearly stated that the investigation would be a serious breach to the impartiality of the UNHRC if the investigations were by any means funded by the countries supporting the resolution. So during the meeting with Pakistan High Commissioner in Sri Lanka, at that time our High Commissioner was Major General Shakil Hussain. I'm very happy that he's also present with us. Sri Lankan President Maithripala Sirisena is reported to have said to him, "Your ambassador Zamir Akram in Geneva fought for us as if he was fighting for his own country." So having said this, I do not wish to prolong, and I hope that Sri Lanka and Pakistan have a natural love and affection, and whenever we meet each other, that is explicitly clear from our facial expressions and our attitude towards each other. Therefore, this relationship should be taken to the next level of generation. And therefore, during my period as the High Commissioner for Sri Lanka and Pakistan, I would see that the relationship between the two countries will be certainly taken to our next generation, so that that friendship will continue forever. Thank you very much.